Okay, thank you very much again for joining us at today's webinar. We're really excited to share with you a little bit about the Sustainable Brands Brand Transformation Roadmap. And we're really fortunate to have with us Dimitar Vlahov from Sustainable Brands here today. Dimitar is one of the developers of the tool. Therefore, we're really fortunate, and I do encourage you to engage today as he presents about the tool, because you'll be hearing it firsthand from the person or one of the people that's developed it. But before I pass on to Dimitar, please just allow me about 5 minutes to tell you a little bit about acaciablue. Not that I'm trying to hijack today's webinar, but just to set the stage and the context for our role on rolling out the Sustainable Brands Brand Development Roadmap, Brand Transformation Roadmap in Malaysia. So acaciablue, we are a purpose-led strategic communications and brand consultancy. We have been in existence since 2013, and we connect brands with communities via their highest social and development goals. Our team are united by a passion to help achieve extraordinary results for brands, while simultaneously contributing to the well-being of communities, nature, and the community, the humanity, in general. Our belief is that businesses can do well and do good. What do we mean by that? That businesses can look after all 3 Ps, people, planet, and profit, which is thereby creating profit through purpose. We partner with brands, therefore, to transform conventional corporate social responsibility activities into larger opportunities for delivering sustainable social impact. We also believe that sustainability can be and should be at the core of business recovery post-COVID-19. We provide a comprehensive range of services, and in doing so, we actually partner with experts in various fields globally to enable us to help our clients create long-term and holistic results. If you go to our website, www.acaciablue.com, you will see a section on our values, and you will see that one of our values is really partnerships and collaboration. We place a lot of importance on partnerships and collaboration because we don't believe in reinventing the wheel. There is a lot that exists globally that has been proven in terms of frameworks, in terms of tools, and we're actively going out to foster partnerships with these global organizations to enable us to help deliver sustainable impact for our clients. So here are a list of some of the services that we offer. Strategy, audit, and planning on our clients' sustainability journeys, program development and project management. We help clients foster partnerships with other organizations. We help with stakeholder communications in regard to sustainability, and we help with digital and on-ground activation for sustainability campaigns. What we have developed here is a 5G framework which helps us to communicate our consultancy services across 5 areas or 5 dimensions, if you like. We've called them the 5 Gs. So we start with the first G, which is grasp. In this first G, we help brands and companies to grasp where they are on their sustainability journey. Once you know where you are on the journey, we then help brands or guide them to progress along the sustainability journey. We then also help brands to generate things like their purpose, their brand influence, and how they should exert this. We help brands to take some communication on sustainability to market via activation, via campaigns. And the final G, gauge, is helping to gauge return on purpose, helping to gauge where you are on your sustainability targets, and also helping to report on those targets using frameworks like the Global Reporting Initiative or the GRI. So at each stage of these 5 Gs, grasp, guide, generate, go to market, engage, we have several tools. Some of these tools are proprietary to acaciablue, and some of these tools, as I've said earlier, is through partnerships that we have fostered with global organizations. And all of these tools actually help us to assist our clients along their sustainability journey and to communicate their sustainability initiatives and to report on those initiatives. Today, we are here specifically to talk about the Sustainable Brands Brand Transformation Roadmap. So I will not be talking about any of the other tools, although we have several more. But the SBBTR, in short form for Brand Transformation Roadmap, is a tool that we use in both the grasp and the guide stage of this 5G framework. Before I pass on to Dimita to talk about the tool, just a little bit about sustainable brands, who they are, and our relationship with them. So sustainable brands from the US, they are a premier global community of brand innovators and change makers, and they aim to inspire, equip, and engage business leaders who see social and environmental challenges as an essential driver of brand innovation. acaciablue is an accredited partner of Sustainable Brands US, and that enables us to use their tools, including the SB Brand Transformation Roadmap, which we will be talking about in a while, to guide companies through their sustainability journey. Now, our partnership with Sustainable Brands goes back quite a few years, more than 5 years actually, and acaciablue convenes the annual Premier Sustainable Brands Conference in Kuala Lumpur every year. So the Sustainable Brands Conference actually is hosted annually across 10 countries around the world. Kuala Lumpur and acaciablue is instrumental to bringing the Sustainable Brands Conference to Malaysia, and then also holding this conference every year for the last 5 years. Each of those conferences has attracted between 400 to 500 participants, and we've brought together thought leaders from some of the world's largest brands, NGOs, policymakers, social enterprises to share innovations in an aim to share best practice and next practices with the community in Malaysia. Incidentally, I just want to quickly also mention a little bit of an ad here, that the next Sustainable Brands Conference will be held virtually, Kuala Lumpur Conference, I should say, will be held virtually on March 23rd and 24th of 2021. So next March, watch out for the Sustainable Brands virtual conference. Okay, so we're here today to really talk about the Sustainable Brands Brand Transformation Roadmap. It's a practical self-assessment and navigation tool to guide companies through each chapter of their sustainability journey. And without any further delay, I'm going to hand this presentation over to Dimitar Vlahov, and he will have the next hour to take us through this. Hold on, Dimitar.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm just going to turn this over to you. Just give me 1 minute.
Of course, sure. And while you're doing that, allow me to say hello to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you to the acaciablue team for hosting us. Let me say a couple of words about myself, and then I'll share my own slides and dive into the presentation component. I have been with the Sustainable Brands organization for 8 years now. At this stage, I'm one of the veterans based out of the global headquarters in Northern California. My role has evolved from Director of Program Development and Director of Content Development to my current role as the Global Head of Knowledge and Insights within Sustainable Brands. And I've had the pleasure and the honor from that point of view to be a co-creator to this brand transformation roadmap tool that we're focusing on today. So let me share my screen now and guide us through the history of the roadmap a little bit as an introduction. And then we'll be diving deeper into the content of it, and of course all the ways it can be useful to companies over the next 45 minutes to an hour. So this tool was created by the Sustainable Brands organization in partnership with our global advisory board. You see here on this slide the names of the working group that led that work. And the broader advisory board included a wider circle of experts beyond these names, but these were the leaders that created the tool. And as you see, it's a mix of chief sustainability officers from some of the world's biggest brands from different industries with lots and lots of experience as practitioners, having seen many of the, if not all of the stages of the sustainability journey, as well as some leading nonprofits and book authors and consultants as well. So a really well-rounded group along with the broader advisory board, and of course with input from hundreds of other people within the global sustainable brands community, worked on creating this tool. Before I tell you what the tool is and how it works, it helps probably to look at why we created it to begin with and why we felt we needed this kind of navigation and orientation help. So a couple of years ago, we at Sustainable Brands asked ourselves and then our community of hundreds of companies that come to our conferences, that are part of our corporate member network. We asked, why are we not all sustainable yet as companies? What is slowing us down or holding back our progress toward becoming sustainable brands? What does that mean to begin with? But more importantly, after a number of years of helping facilitate this work, why aren't we seeing more progress and faster progress toward sustainability among all these companies that we observe and work with? And we talked to a few hundred of our customers, a few hundred companies from different sectors, mostly based in the US, although many of them were global multinational brands anyway, to try and get a sense of the answers to those two questions. And very interestingly, we observed these four patterns among the answers. So many companies shared with us that they feel lost in a sense, actually in a few different senses. They would feel lost with respect to what to do next on their sustainability journey, often due to feeling overwhelmed with an overabundance of frameworks and advice and just such a large ecosystem of solutions and possible next steps out there, which is a blessing in one way, but also a curse in that it can create paralysis and it can create this feeling of confusion or feeling lost. Some of them felt lost with respect to making the business case for it internally to their leadership inside their companies. Even lost in translation, again, whether with leadership of their companies or with other parts of their companies, other departments. Let's say if this is the sustainability team answering, or lost in translation with potential partners outside. And on that note, another big pattern we noticed was that many were, even if they knew what to do next and how to go about, advancing on their sustainability journey, they would report that they haven't necessarily met all the right partners outside of their organizations, all the right, let's say, NGOs for certain purposes, or other partners for other kinds of clubs. And so they needed help with that. Many said that they need help with validation from peers. So that's the third bullet here on this slide. They felt that they could use more time and more sharing and learning from peers, so chief sustainability officers or other similar functions from other companies. That was an interesting finding. And then lastly, we also noticed there was some complacency, honestly speaking, among companies. So there was a good number of them that felt that they were doing enough, that they don't necessarily feel that there's more to the sustainability journey. And just to give you a sense of cases in which that may arise, that sometimes happens, for example, with certain tech companies, let's say in Silicon Valley, close to our headquarters in the San Francisco Bay Area in California. Some would say, well, we're 100% renewable energy powered, and we're sustainable. And so, when in reality, there's more to it than that. And that's fantastic that they've achieved big things like that. But, they didn't necessarily understand that there's more to becoming a sustainable company and a sustainable brand than that. And so they would, and that was another big pattern that we felt. So when we reflected on these, we realized they're all problems of orientation and navigation. Either they know the way, but they're overwhelmed with the kinds of partners and the tactics to pick forward, or they're feeling lost, or they need to be shown the way, right? All different flavors of orientation and navigation help needed here. So with that in mind, we decided, all right, well, let's create a roadmap. Let's show the whole journey from business as usual all the way to what it means to be a sustainable company and a sustainable brand. And by the way, those two go hand in hand. In case you're wondering, we're saying a sustainable brand, and that means company and brand, because you can't be one without the other. So they really kind of go hand in hand in our theory of changing the way we see the world. So we decided to create a roadmap that shows the whole journey, and I will get to that in a moment, and we'll play with various aspects of that journey in the interactive components of today's webinar. But just a quick summary of what the roadmap ended up being, given all that input and these objectives that we had. We wanted it to be an orientation and navigation tool, right, that shows the whole journey. We wanted it to be a tool that can help guide the leadership of the company with practical next steps, as well as help connect the right resources and partners to that company to enable them to take next steps on their sustainability journey. And we wanted it also to be good at engaging other teams and any stakeholders, any and all employees inside the companies, to rally them around the purpose of advancing on their sustainability journey, as well as in practical matters such as setting goals, identifying priorities, and going on to efficiently onto next steps on their journey. In order to best understand what we mean by the journey from business as usual to a sustainable brand, it helps to spend a moment here, a minute, on the way we define a sustainable brand. And as I said, again, sustainable brands and sustainable company, you can think of those as synonymous because you can't be one without the other. So our notion of brand is more than just the kind of definition of brand that you find in marketing textbooks. It's broader and deeper than that. It's who you are, what you do, how you do it, and only then how you talk about it, all of that, right? So it's company and brand. Okay, so with that clarified, we summarized all the best thinking from thought leaders and book authors to all these practitioners and chief sustainability officers with many decades of experience leading sustainability at multinational brands, and all that boiled down to this being the destination. This being what characterizes a sustainable brand. The combination of these 5 things that are listed on this slide. So first and foremost, well, actually no, they're all equally important. But first, having a clearly defined, articulated, embedded, and fully activated environmental or social purpose, positive purpose, beyond producing profit. Producing profit's fine, of course, that's great, but having a purpose in addition to that to chase was one big characteristic of a sustainable brand. Another is consistently leveraging the power of brand influence through marketing, communications, PR, and other kinds of stakeholder engagement to drive a systemic shift toward a more sustainable world. That's a big one. That's the brand influence dimension. Thirdly, a sustainable brand would operate in a way that ensures the health, resilience, and flourishing of society and the environment. So it would do no harm in any way to the environment or society through operations in supply chain. And in addition, it would act to regenerate the parts of nature and society that are in need of repair. Fourth, a sustainable brand would deliver products and services that result in sustainable outcomes across the whole value chain. And finally, it would practice the kind of transparent governance with integrity that does not conflict with any of the previous four characteristics, and also enables the training and the promotion of the kind of business leaders that are well suited to leading the company with the sustainability journey as a high priority. So that's the governance dimension. All right, so that's a tall order, right? So it makes you reflect on this question: how many companies are there? How many companies have achieved that? How many sustainable brands that have all the 5 characteristics I just listed are there? These are all great great examples of companies that we also have noted are close to that. I would say probably in my observation, IKEA is probably the closest of all of these to being a truly sustainable brand. Amazon, certainly not there in the governance dimension, for example, even if otherwise they are. Nestle, getting closer, but not quite there. They certainly have more to do in the products and services dimension, for example. And in any case, yeah, all great suggestions and all fairly close, but still, none of them, I would say, are completely sustainable brands yet. And that is okay. And the point here is that we recognize that this is a high bar, right? A tall order, as I said a moment ago, but we also want it to be completely realistic and real about what it really takes. So we wanted to paint this absolute journey as opposed to a relative one. So many of the companies that are being listed in the chat are great and better than their peers, and so they're sustainable on a relative kind of basis. But have they really crossed the real finish line? To use a football analogy, the real goal line? Not really. So that distinction between performing relatively better than your peers or than most of the rest of the economy on sustainability right now, distinction between that and being actually sustainable, fully sustainable, is an important one we wanted to drive here. So just then taking that definition of a sustainable brand and looking at how you get there, we defined 5 levels of maturity and progress along the way in each of the 5 dimensions that were behind the 5 key characteristics of a sustainable brand. So you see them listed on the left here: purpose, brand influence, operations and supply chain, products and services, and governance. Level 5 is the destination, so to speak. When you've accomplished all the 5 things I talked about a minute ago, then you're a sustainable brand and you're at level 5. But very few, if anyone's there on all 5, and some may be there in one or more dimensions, but not on all. And so it's really important to consider where you are on the journey and how best to think about advancing in the context of the whole journey. So that really is the core of what this tool is about. It's about the journey. The destination is very important, but the journey even more so, because the vast majority of all of the companies here today with us, as well as others, are on this journey. And here's a very quick Super quick, somewhat oversimplified snapshot just for a very quick idea of what the levels mean. We talked about level 5. Level 1 is business as usual. We also call it conventional, where a company is doing next to nothing or nothing around sustainability in any sense. So levels 1 and 2 are sort of beginner levels. Levels 4 and 5 are the transformational change levels, and level 3 is sort of the breakthrough level where sustainability becomes a strategic priority and a core driver of the company that's relatively well established and coming from the top and streamlined appropriately. So we'll talk more about what that means in the exercise in a minute. And then it's worth looking at this for just a quick second to recognize that a company, and this is a very important part of the conversation and of how to think of this tool, any given company can be at different levels or at different stages of the journey in each of the 5 areas, right? So they can be, as is in this randomly generated example here, they can be a level 3 on purpose and a level 2 on brand influence and doing really well on governance, perhaps, but not so well on product and service innovation for sustainability and so forth. And so that's part of the value of the tool, is to see where you are on each of the 5 journeys that together comprise the big journey, and then analyze what that means for a given company and what to do next. Okay, so we've reached the interactive component of this session. I think you all have the next slides here that identify in more granular detail the key milestones, the key markers of each level of progress within each of the 5 areas, right? So I'm showing the one for purpose right now on the screen with the key markers of all the 5 levels, and we have similar ones for all the other areas. So what we'd like to do is give everyone the next 10 minutes or so, maybe a little less, I don't know, 7 to 10 minutes to pick one or more of the 5 areas, familiarize yourself with the 5 levels, and see if you can place your company, on the journey from level 1 to level 5, given what's how the levels are described. If you don't want to or can't do that for your company, then any company you pick, just pick a company and try to place it on this journey. And with the goal of familiarizing ourselves with the 5 levels of one or more of these 5 dimensions. So I'm going to go quiet for several minutes while we do that, and then we'll come back. We'll chat a little bit about your impressions of the journey that you picked, one or more areas, and then I'll share a little bit more about the practical value and how this tool is being used by companies so far in practice.
Dimitar, maybe I can start the ball rolling and see whether it spurs anyone to ask any questions. So,
sure.
As you know that acaciablue themselves have done this evaluation, so I won't be talking about our own scores, but I had a brand in mind or a company in mind. Won't name the company, but looking at across these 5 dimensions, I think sometimes there are companies that do really well in terms of coming out with products and services that are innovative and that do address some of those social and environmental. But when I tried to look back and think about whether they have clearly defined their purpose or articulated it, I failed to kind of see if they've done that, or maybe if they've done it, they haven't communicated it, or I don't see them having exerted the brand influence, even though on the products and service side, I see them delivering. So do you have a comment on that? Is there like a communication gap in terms of, maybe they do have a purpose, but maybe they're just not communicating it, or, so any comment on that, or have you seen with other brands?
100%. So yes, this happens often. This is one of the main reasons why or various variations of this is a main reason why I said that companies often are at different stages with respect to the 5 different journeys that are part of the overall journey. And so this tool prompts you to identify that and then to think about why that may be the case, and then from there to think about what you can do about it. So that is one of the main kind of values of the tool, or the main types of value that it provides. I'll speak more to that in a moment. And yeah, it's another practical way to think of this is that's a great way to identify any blind spots the company may have. You may identify all of a sudden, as you noted, that the company has dedicated lots of attention to, progressing in, let's say, 3 of the 5 areas, but not so much on the other 2. And so, again, working through the reasons why that may be internally inside the company can prove really an interesting exercise and an interesting way to connect more dots and figure out elements of the whole journey that may have been overlooked or under prioritized for some reason, and so forth. So, good way to discover blind spots and silos and different ways that aren't, different things inside the company that may not be optimal, in any or all of the 5 areas. So that's one of that's a good segue to one of the things I want to share next, which is just a little more about how this tool is supposed to be and already being used in practice. And by the way, I should say here we have more than 100 companies.
Yeah. We have a comment. We have a comment in the chat box regarding something that you're. Maybe you want to just address that before we move on.
Sure. Let me take a quick look. Yeah, that's a great comment. It sometimes companies that are a conglomerate of a number of different that companies that have a big product portfolio, or that consists of many other of many product brands, can be a little more tricky, more difficult to analyze. That is correct. So that's a good prompt to say it's still possible though. And then you just sort of think of the the average, or the representative a picture that is a fair summary of all the different parts of the company. That's one way to look at it. Another way to apply this tool to that kind of case is to do a separate analysis of each part of that company's product portfolio. Right? You can do a separate analysis of the journey of each of the sub brands. So, for example, if we're talking about Procter & Gamble, you can do this for all of Procter & Gamble Global, which would be a complex exercise, but it's doable. Or you could say, all right, well, I want to find out where Head & Shoulders is, right, on this journey, and then you apply it to Head & Shoulders. Or you pick another Tide detergent, you do it with respect to that brand, and so on and so forth, and then you just have applied it to product brands in that sense, and so that still helps. And then you can analyze them together or separately. So that's a good observation. So you're probably picking up by now, it goes without saying that the intended value that the tool can deliver is hiding in these things. It's hiding in understanding where a company is on the journey in the context of the whole journey, and that's helpful to understand and to socialize inside a company to begin with, right? The context of the whole journey and why that is the whole journey, and why the definition of a sustainable brand is the way it is, and what are all the stages of maturity that lead there. So that's that in itself is a really helpful learning exercise, and it can be used and is being used in over 100 companies already, to engage with the leadership of the company or across teams, inside the company, across departments, to reach a common understanding of the whole journey and how they can work together further. Similarly, it can be helpful in engaging external stakeholders, right? Suppliers, investors, other partners, NGO partners, and even in an indirect way, even consumers. And it can be helpful in setting, goals and sparking innovation in the context of where a company is on the journey. So if you're level 2 versus level 4, that maybe different levels of ambition of goals and objectives are appropriate at those levels, especially given where your company is also in the other dimensions. So there's that. I'll show results of the averages of the 100 and plus companies that have already taken an assessment to see where they are on the journey. I'll show you some fun charts on that in a minute. But just worth noting here that today we're talking about the core framework and the sort of the conceptual side of the tool, the journey and why it's important and what it can help with. But you should know that there's a number of things that go with it that we're not showing in this presentation that sort of complete the package. One is a self-assessment tool. That's a cloud-based software tool that where you go in, log in, you take a test, and it shows you what level you are in each of the 5 areas. And then from there are recommended next steps as well as recommended resources that are custom tailored given your level in each of the 5 areas. So all these practical ways in which the tool helps you then after the assessment. Here's just a quick screen of the login screen. But then once you take the assessment test as a company, you can find what level you are in each of the 5 areas. These are just two of many possible combinations. Now let me just share another minute or two of practical ways in which the tool is already being used, just to help keep bringing it to life for you. Then I'll show you where the 100 companies that have already used it are on the journey, and then we'll go to Q&A. So a few examples here, not a complete list, but the one in the top left corner is a very common one that we see all the time, actually, where sustainability teams are using this tool to help develop a common language and a common map of collaboration with the marketing functions inside. So it's often the case, and I would guess, without knowing for sure, but I would guess that this may be the case in many of your companies as well, that the marketing team or the marketing, communication, and PR teams need, nudging, need education, sometimes need certain kinds of engagement to become really collaborative around advancing on sustainability and making that a higher priority, however that may manifest inside your company's brand values and priorities. So that's a common application of this, to use this as a conversation starter, as a conversation advancer between sustainability and marketing functions. Similarly, on the bottom right, it can be used, and often is now starting to be used as a way to bring the product development or product innovation function along. It's often one of the areas that is lagging. So we'll often see companies are doing quite well on having a defined and activated purpose, are doing quite well on communicating that internally and externally, are doing quite well in operations and even maybe supply chain management, but haven't yet done much with their product portfolio to bring that to a high level of performance. So then, all right, well, how do we do that? Well, let's analyze what the different levels of the product development journey look like, and sort of, again, bring everyone to the same page. Yeah, similarly, public affairs or public relations teams, or other sort of aspects of governance can be engaged and synced, synced up with in this fashion as well. Here are some direct quotes from some of the companies that have already used it. So companies like Nestle and American Express and Biomar and Estee Lauder and HP and many others from a variety of different industries have already used this tool to assess themselves and then to help speed up or inform next steps after the assessment. So they report that in practical ways that they're using it to drive sustainability literacy. One said inside their company, up and down the company, with leadership as well as with employees. Another said that it's very helpful as a validation tool to basically take the assessment and knock on the door of company leadership and say, hey, we're doing well in these areas, in these one or two areas, not so well in these other areas. Let's see if we can be bigger and bolder in terms of the resources we dedicate to this, and therefore drive better results and help catch up in those areas where we're currently lagging. And as we commented previously, it can be very helpful in discovering blind spots and silos and other ways in which the company may not be entirely on the same page when it comes to the sustainability journey across departments and teams and across geographies too. And so helping connect all the right dots, as one company put it, is a big value in and of itself. All right, so let's look at then. It's now more than 100, but this was produced from the first 100 assessments of all these companies, many of them multinational brands that you're familiar with. After they took the assessments, these were the results. This is the distribution of results. So what level of the journey, they were. You see, very few. There is a group of leaders at level 5 here on purpose, but not many at levels 3 and 4. And of course, a very large group at level 2 and level 1. So largely, around level 2, you see the average mean as well as the median in the top right corner, listed here for purpose. And this shape of the distribution with many falling in levels 1 and 2, and then a sharp decline, and then some leaders at level 5. This is a shape that we see in all dimensions. So we see it also in brand influence, even lower average here. Many just starting that journey of thinking about how to embed and activate purpose and sustainability values inside marketing and communications and other modes of brand influence, and what that even means for them. Many are just beginning that journey. Almost no one's there to bridge the divide between the leaders. Again, there is a good group of leaders at level 5 and relatively few at 4 and 3. And then the lowest performers among the 5 dimensions are operations and supply chain and products and services. So actually, products and services is the lowest average of all of them. Very similar, very close to operations and supply chain. Similar shape. The group of leaders at level 5 here is much smaller. As you see, virtually no one at level 4. And the vast majority grouped around levels 1 and 2. Products and services, same picture. And then governance, the 5th area, is doing a bit better than all of them. It's the highest average, and as you see, the highest percentages at level 4 and 5. Still a good number of very big number of beginners there as well, but a little more advanced on average. So this makes sense. Areas like purpose and governance, they're not trivial, but they're relatively easier in many senses of the word to work on. They typically take less time and less investment to transform. for sustainability compared to areas like product and service innovation in operations and supply chain, where even if you know what to do next, it may be challenging and it may take a while, and it may take some solid prioritization and fine-tuning. So this is not terribly surprising, but that's just to give us a sense and to check with what we sort of said in the beginning, that very few are there, and we haven't had yet a case of a company that has all fives, by the way. So these groups of level 5 that we see, they're great, but they're just for that dimension, right? So we don't have anyone with all fives. Some of the companies you listed at the beginning have taken it and are not all fives. So there's that as well.
So maybe I can just sum up. Well, today won't be obviously the last time you get a chance to ask a question. So if you do think of any, please reach out to us at acaciablue. You would have our email addresses. Reach out to Shah and I. And if anybody wants to take this discussion further to see how we may be able to work with you, or you just want to find out a little bit more about what we do, we didn't get a chance to talk about some of the other tools as well, but if you just want to have a chat with us, please reach out, and we'd be happy to have one-to-one sessions with any company or anybody who wants to find out more. Okay, so one last chance for anybody to make any comments or to ask any questions. I'll just leave that for a few seconds, and if not, I think that's it for today, and we'll get back in touch with you to see how you want to progress this. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your time. Thank you for attending.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
to the team for hosting us, and until next time.
Thanks a lot, Dimitar. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.